Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, which is to say in the Paleo Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, Bahashim, which means in the name, Yahweh Shai, which means He is our salvation, and that is who the world ignorantly calls God, the Heavenly Father, and Jesus, His only begotten Son, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites, all right? Now, as you see on your screen, this is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 1 and verse 14. And it reads, "To fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom," all right? Because a lot of people claim they, understand the Bible and, know Jesus or God, and that right there lets you know they don't have any understanding, all right? And even being part of the circumcision, those that know that they're Israelites that are so-called Black, Latino, or Native American and have the name, but for apparent reasons have decided to go back into their vomit, show that the Lord isn't dealing with them, all right? So it says, to fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and it was created with the faithful in the womb. See? So this is part of being the elect. You have that wisdom that was with you because the Lord ordained you from the womb, okay? So it says to fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, all right? And only the elect is going to keep that fear, all right? That's part of the endurance. It says, in it, what? That fear, okay? This is what compels those that are fighting to endure to the end, all right? That fear, okay? It says, in it, that fear was created with the faithful in the womb, see? So upon us waking up to who we are, we were fearful, all right? Knowing and finding out that we were the people of the book and that our power is greater than any of these other powers that we thought before, it compelled us to do everything asked of us to the best of our ability, all right? And even to this very same day, we're still striving, okay? Because why? It isn't over, all right? It is not over, okay? Finding out who you are and, the power's name, Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, that's the beginning, all right? But now you have to do and ask what's required from you of them, okay? And it says, and that fear, it was created with the faithful. See, this is all about faith, all right? And not just saying you got faith with your lips, but actually showing your works, okay? So this is something that was preordained for the elect to hold on or to continue unto the end, all right? And that's how we know if we endure to the end that we are the first fruits, okay? So let's read this again, because this is a beautiful verse from the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach in the Apocrypha. To fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, all right? And this is why you see individuals, fizzling out because they never feared the Lord, all right? They had a following or a base where they thought that people who followed them was listening to the Lord, but come to find out, they was just listening to them, okay? And that stroked their ego even more, all right? That's why you have to be humble in this thing, all right? Because the Lord, He can open your eyes up just to close them right back, all right? And take the oil from you. So it says to fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, all right? And that's not something that everyone can obtain, all right? You have to be what? Ordained. It says, and it was created with the faithful in the womb. I mean, the Lord already knew who was going to be faithful and fear Him way before we even woke up to this truth, okay? You see? Now that's powerful. Now let's go to Jeremiah 1 and verse 5. This is the book of Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5. It reads, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. See, he knew who was going to be fearful. He knew who were the faithful were. He knew who the elect. All right. But we have to play things out here on earth. All right. It says, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And did what? And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations, right? Wherever our people are scattered to, because you have Israelites scattered among all nations, okay? So he already knew who would fear him and who were the faithful, okay? Because why? He ordained them. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. What else? And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. See? And we know, pursuant to Jeremiah 3 and 15, that it says what? Let's just jump over 2 verses. It says, and I will give you pastors, another name, prophets, according to my heart. Why? Because they will fear the Lord. They're not going to lead their flock or the flock or congregation astray. It says, and I will give you pastors according to my heart. Why? Because he already ordained them before he formed them. And they will be found faithful because why? They have the fear of the Lord. It says, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. See? That knowledge and understanding is having the names, calling on the names, not deviating from the doctrine that you will learn and taught and brought into, you know, to have your congregation, those that follow you, to go astray. All right. But if that so happened to be, that just means that the Lord isn't dealing with you or your congregation. All right. Because it says in Job 12, and is it 16? Job 12 and 16, with him is strength and wisdom. See? The Lord gives this strength and wisdom, all right, to who? Those that he ordained from the beginning. It says, the deceived, those that are being deceived, to believe that whoever they following is actually a prophet or being sanctified from the Lord. And the deceiver, the one that's doing the deceiving, are his, who? The Lord, all right? He ordains it, he orchestrates this whole thing. The left-hand side and the right-hand side. See? So that's why we fear the Lord. Because why? We were found to have faith before the beginning. All right? The first fruits. This is Isaiah 48. This is Isaiah 48, and let's start at verse 4. Because I knew that thou art obstinate, and thy neck is an iron sinew, and thy brow breast, I have even from the beginning declared it to thee. Before it came to pass, I shewed it thee, lest thou shouldest say, my idol have done them, and my graven image and my molten image have commanded them. Verse 6, thou hast heard, see all this, and will not ye declare it? I have showed thee new things from this time, even hidden things, and thou didst not know them. They are created now and not from the beginning, even before the day when thou heardest them not, lest thou shouldest say, behold, I knew them. So we waking up into this truth, we believe we were serving, you know, the right God or the right, you know, Jesus, and so on and so forth. It says, verse 8, yea, thou heardest not, yea, thou knewest not, yea, from that time that thy ear was not open. See, but we had to be open up to this word, okay? Who our powers were, Yahweh, and his only begotten son, Yahushua. All right, because there was all type of different names like Jehovah or Yeshua or commonly known Jesus and God. All right. But no, when we heard those names, it rung a bell. It was like a frequency that opened us up. When we heard the name of Yahweh, Wah, meaning and, Yahweh Shai, oh man, those names, as it says in St. John 10 and 27, my sheep hear my voice, I know them and they follow me. See, those names for the, elect, those that were ordained from the beginning, because everyone's going to hear the names, but only the ones that fear the Lord, as we read in Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 and verse 14, and were found faithful are going to do what's actually required. It says, yea, verse 8, thou heardest not, yea, thou knewest not, yea, from that time that thy ear was not open. See, it says, for I knew that thou wouldest deal very treacherously. See, so the Lord knew it would be a time when we would serve these other idols and go off. All right. Because why? It was part of the plot. It was part of the story, our account, especially those of us that are of the elect. Okay. We would have to be scattered amongst all the other nations. Okay. But this word would filter us out. This true word would filter out the elect amongst all the other nations. Okay. It says, from that time that thy ear was not open, for I knew that thou wouldest deal very treacherously, and was called a transgressor from the womb. See? So this has all been ordained from the beginning, from the start. Okay? We would have to go off, go into captivity, call on these other idols, these other false gods, these other false religions. All right? And then for that moment, that time, of us being in the act of sinning, because sin is transgression against the law, 1 John 3 and 4, the Lord will wake up that elect, that standard, that small remnant, all right, that he knew from the beginning, that he ordained from before the womb. Okay. It says, verse 9, for my name's sake will I defer my anger. See? And that's why he could have destroyed us, okay? He could have wiped off the nation of Israel just because, all right? But he's bound by his word, okay? It says, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off, see? And we know he has a very small cluster of grapes known as the elect that he wants to keep to himself, all right? It says, behold, I have refined thee, see? And now he's refining that very small cluster, all right? And he's sifting and breaking apart the ones that not, all right? Because you got those wolf in sheep clothing, those pastors, those false prophets, those false preachers that's teaching doctrines deliberately contrary to what the word says. And I'm speaking about those that are in the truth, the circumcised, all right? That all heathens can be saved, okay? That the mark of the beast is anything but the RFID microchip. That the names all of a sudden don't matter, all right? You can be interchangeable and switch them out however you feel and use them whenever you feel like using them. It says, for my name's sake, verse 9, will I defer my anger, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off. See? So he preserved the elect, all right? Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. See? And the elect this is what makes the elect the elect. They have the faith, and they're going to endure sound doctrine all the way up until the end. Okay? That's how you're going to know who's the elect. That's how you're going to know who the Lord sanctified and ordained from the beginning. It says, verse 11, why? For my own sake, nothing else other than the Lord's own sake. Even for my own sake, he had to reiterate it twice. Will I do it? For how should my name be polluted? See? Hey, the Lord is doing this for his name's sake. All right? Don't get it twisted. Okay? You're going to have individuals that seem like they got, all the knowledge in the world. They may even be prosperous, have a large following, have all the fame, the glory, whatever you want to call it. All right? Because it's only for a small time. All right? It's only for a short time. All right? Then it's going to be known who is the elect, who is the Lord's. It says, and I will not give my glory unto another. See? So, of course, during a sifting process, you're going to have the undesirables mixed with the desirables. But see, this is what's happening. Those that are ordained, the elect, they're going to have that understanding, that knowledge, that wisdom to be able to differentiate between those that are preaching the understanding according to the Lord's heart and those that's preaching their own understanding. All right? To their own what? Bellies. Okay? And the elect is going to make the necessary adjustments to follow after who? Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Because he set up man to feed you according to his heart, as we read in Jeremiah 3:15. See? So if you deceive, that's because the Lord isn't dealing with you. All right? As we read in Job 12:16, the deceived and the deceiver are his. Okay? So this thing is very important that you take this truth seriously. Okay? Because one day you can be in it, and the next day you can still think you in it. Okay? You don't got it until you got it. All right? You don't got it until you got it. What does that mean? You don't have it until you endure to the end. All right? We all fighting for this. Okay? That's why it says in Sirach 4:28, strive for the truth until the end. Okay? You got to continue this thing. You got to continue in the doctrine that you was taught, the sound doctrine. And don't switch it up just because, you got bills to pay, you got mouths to feed, and you don't trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, so you want to do your own thing. Get your own quote unquote bread. Nah, man. You got to stay true to what it is that got you there. And that's this truth. All right? You don't got it until you got it. Okay? And the Lord knows, like we said, he knows who's his. All right? He going to give you whatever you want, especially if you're not of the elect, because that's going to just make it more apparent to the elect that you're not of the elect. All right? Now, all of a sudden, you selling out. You stop calling on the names. You starting to preach that all people can be saved. You starting to pretty much teach a version of so-called Christianity. Okay? That God so loved the world. All right? So it's apparent, okay, that a great sifting is going on right now before the end, okay? The Lord has those that are his and those that are going to be deceived, okay? We just got to pray that we what? Endure to the end, all right? So let's go ahead and close out with 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. And this is 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. It reads, be sober, be vigilant. See? These are key instructions on enduring, being sober and vigilant. You got to watch out for false doctrines, and you have to be sober to know when you see and hear and witness a false doctrine. All right? A switch up. You see? And not a switch up for, error's sake, but a switch up for misleading sake. Okay? So you have to be able to differentiate between the two. It says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, that's right. You can even have those that know the truth, right? Those are the ones you got to watch out even more, okay? Because they know the scriptures and they can, use it to fit their needs, their bellies, to fill their bellies, okay? Because they have ulterior motives, all right? And usually you're part of that ulterior motive, okay? How can they get as much out of you as they can before they're exposed? So it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil. Now we know ultimately the devil is Esau Edom. It says, as a roaring lion, but guess what? He has hirelings, okay? Those that look like you and me. Those that know the truth, all right? Those that sold out, that's been compromised, all right? He has a way to get into them because why? The Lord isn't dealing with them, and the Lord allowed them to be deceived. The deceiver and the deceive is his. It says, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour, right? What's your price? Name it. I can give it to you. Okay? You see? They don't know how to resist temptation. Okay? Because why? They don't have the faith. Okay? See, they bite off more than they can chew. All right? They think they want that fame, that notoriety, that little bit of publicity. Then when they get it, it's too much for them to hold. All right? That's why it says in Proverbs 30, verse 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken, that feed me food convenient for me. All right? Lest I be full and deny the Lord, or lest I be hungry and let's just see if I can get it. It says Proverbs 30 verse 8, remove far from me vanities and lies, give me neither poverty nor riches, feed me with food convenient for me, lest I be full and deny thee and say, who is Yahweh? Or lest I be poor and steal and take thy name of my power in vain. See? So we just want enough to keep us level-headed, all right? Just enough to keep us to endure and cross that finish line, all right? Nothing more, nothing less. Abba Rathasah, Father will, okay? So this is all this is, just words of encouragement. Whoa. So be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. All right. And hey, he got something for everyone that ain't tied down to this truth, man. A bag, who knows, women, who knows, whatever, to keep you occupied. All right. To have you switch up the doctrine. Okay. So that's why we got to continue to be sober and be vigilant. All right. Because this devil is working all the way up until the end. That's why we got to continue to endure, because this devil ain't taking off. He's walking. All right. That's his mission. To see how many he can deceive even up until the end. That's why it says, if it were possible, he should deceive the very elect. St. Matthew 24 and 24, but it's not. All right. See, the elect is not enamored or at all with the ways of this world. All right. We gave it up. We counted the cost. All right. There was nothing in this world that's worth sacrificing this knowledge, this truth, this wisdom, this understanding. It just isn't. Okay. And if the Lord is dealing with you, you ain't going to get it. All right. You're just going to be just enough and get just enough to get by. All right. Not too much, not too little. All right. So the Lord deals with those that fear him, and he knows them because they are faithful from the womb. All right. So with that being said, pray someone was edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.